Hello, Maverick traders. Welcome out to your currency recap. It is December 20th, 2023. Corey here with you. Nice to see all of you. Let's jump into it. We always go through the broader markets. We talk about what meaningful news is out there, if any. Today was an interesting day with a big drop in equities. The first day that we've dropped in some time. Technical analysis on the broader markets, on the various currency pairs. And then we'll talk about setups, be it in crypto or different pairs, Aussie yen, whatever the pairing is, we're going to look for those setups together. All right, so as we look at what's moving out there, Bitcoin is still holding up relatively well. Aussie and Kiwi have been strong. In fact, they broke out, but then they gave back most of those gains today. So we'll talk about those high wave kind of shooting star-like candles. It could be a false breakout. It's certainly vulnerable to that. I'm not so sure that's the case, but we'll look at those. That's where strength has been. Most things more in the neutral category. On the crypto side, Bitcoin Cash is very much the underperformer, and then British Pound is also definitely underperforming in the currency side. So if you've been looking at areas to short of late, the British Pound seems like an obvious candidate on the short side. Now, for news today, risk off arrives. This is that breaking a 9-day winning streak. Now, a 9-day market winning streak is pretty impressive. So today gave back about 1.5%, gave back a couple of those days advance. And what I think happened is more along the lines of people were chasing momentum. And so it fed off of itself a little bit late in the day, where as people started to sell and it got a little worse, that drove more selling. And those are what we call the weak hands. The people that basically were just riding momentum and they were looking for any reason to sell, and today gave them a reason as the momentum turned over. January effect could be coming in 2024. The January effect is essentially that people want to hold their winning positions into the next calendar year before they sell. And so the winners hold up really well in late 2023. But then as soon as the calendar hits, if it's something someone wants to sell, the reason they wait for the calendar to flip over is because that delays the tax that they have to pay a whole additional year. So there is certainly a setup for that, where some of the leadership areas could become laggards next year. That's true in currency land, crypto, all of those markets have the same potential January effect. Now, as we look at currencies, like I said, the British pound is underperforming, down about 0.5%. Japanese yen had a nice bounce back, as you'd expect. When you go risk off, the yen and the US dollar tend to pop. Well, those were the areas of outperformance. What's interesting about this, though, is Aussie and Kiwi were flat on the day, but if you look at the chart, they were up sharply and then they gave back all of those gains. So it was really sort of disappointing price action. If you were bullish, you're saying, boy, they had a breakout happening and then they gave all of that up and then some. Crypto held in relatively well, up 1.5%. Gold up about 0.7%. Equities, like we said, selling off today. As we break down crypto, Bitcoin Cash has been the underperformer. For today, it was certainly Litecoin, which was the crypto that stayed in the negative territory. So as we think about our market outlook, let's take a look at what equities are doing. And like I said, we've been in this nice upward trend. This advance has been ongoing for some time. You can see the higher highs and higher lows past couple of months have been booming. Today, we gave back the last few days of advance, and it was an ugly candle. We basically finished on the lows, but really it was just kind of taking off some of the froth. Now, where do we get for the rest of this week and in the short term? The problem with equities rising or falling a lot is the calendar. You're going to have market closures for Christmas and New Year's. Volumes tend to dry up a little bit. People go on vacation. So, what normally happens and what I anticipate is choppiness. As you kind of sell off, you bounce back. As you kind of rally, you fall off. And I would expect a little bit of a choppy environment where over the next week or so, we're just kind of spinning our wheels and not really going anywhere. And unfortunately for trading currencies, that's a tough environment to trade. So you might see something similar in currency pairs that you're trading where we just kind of spin our wheels and don't really do much in CAD and Kiwi and Aussie and pound and all these currencies. They may act very similar to that. For the rest of this week, we've got GDP, the final GDP number, and the recession did not come, expecting 5.2% growth here in the US, and then we've got core PCE. The Fed has said, and this is Friday morning, the Fed has said that this is their preferred measure of inflation, more so than the CPI numbers. Now, this is the end of 2023 for all intents and purposes. Why do I say that? Because next week we get into Christmas, and then the following it's New Year's, and this is just pretty much the end of economic reports. As you look at the economic calendar, there's not going to be much reported next week or the following. So most of the economic reports at this point have come out. Again, this is seasonally where you get into a quiet period. There's not a lot of stuff to move assets. There could always be a surprise looming. There could always be something that comes out of nowhere. But for now, these are not, this is kind of the end of the economic numbers for 2023. Now, let's talk about some possibilities here. So, Bitcoin, if you were to say what looks good on the chart, forget about the name or the symbol and just look at the price pattern. Look, it's strong. It's basing up here near the highs, ascending triangle type of pattern, and looks poised for a potential upside break. So I much prefer, as I've been on record saying, if you're going to play to the upside, Bitcoin is the best of the cryptocurrencies. And then if we look at Kiwi, I wanted to look at Aussie and Kiwi's chart from this standpoint. They pretty much are identical. But do you see how we essentially broke out today above this level of resistance, but by the end of the session had given it all back? This is vulnerable to being what we call a false breakout. From false moves come fast moves. It is vulnerable to further declines. I don't know if it'll come back to this prior low. I don't know if it'll pierce that low. It is vulnerable to that. Now, maybe it shakes it off very nicely and just recovers. It's a possibility, but I would be inclined to say it's sort of a low risk, high reward type of setup to say, okay, it's bouncing back a little bit intraday. What if I had a tight stop and thought that we could see further decline? So, I could kind of lean more towards today's price action really is not good. It better recover, and it better recover within the next day or two in Aussie and Kiwi and kind of sustain that breakout and have today just be a nothing. But usually when you get a candle like this, high wave candles tend to be more indicative of a peak, and then you get a correction. High wave candle, little false move, a correction in Aussie and Kiwi seems likely. So from a crypto or currency trading standpoint, Bitcoin looks like the bullish area of the market. A lot of these Kiwi and Aussie, specifically on the currency side, look like the bearish candidates. Now, if we were to trade Kiwi and Aussie to the downside and play this little false breakout. You'll see it on the 4-hour charts and the shorter term charts. This is a rollover. This is could be a trend changer. Well, if we're going to play them in the short term to the downside, the question is, what do we play to the upside, right, against it? And here's where I think for the first time in a long time, if you wanted something that's similar but should outperform, I like CAD. And this is a new change for me, but I like CAD even better than Aussie and Kiwi. I thought CAD might stabilize more than it did here. I think it was a couple of weeks ago. I kind of looked at the CAD and said, hey, we could see a stabilization here. Well, it's gone sideways since then. It hasn't gone up, so it wasn't really a great call by any means. But I think it could outperform. And then if you wanted something that's just more obvious, I think you could play something like US dollar or even Japanese yen to the upside versus those. So shorting Aussie yen or shorting Kiwi yen, these would be your symbols, right? Aussie JPY or the Kiwi symbol JPY, and you would be on the short side of those pairs. So that's an interesting area to look as well. For the rest of this week, we'll still be sending out market updates. We will send one tomorrow, Thursday, and then we'll have our trading room over the weekend. We've got Christmas and New Year's right around the corner, and wishing you all a very Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Great to be with you throughout 2023. Wishing you all the best. We'll see you next time.